This lady wrote a novel on how to take out her husband. And then she did it. And these Instagram influencers unfortunately decided to not wear their life jackets once they hit choppy waters because they didn't want to ruin their tan. What are some of the other wild and strange decisions people will make with disastrous consequences? Let's find out, starting with number 7, Husbandless Manual. Nancy Crampton Brophy, a romance novelist who once wrote an essay about how to off your husband, ended up following her own advice, or so prosecutors argued. Convicted of offing her husband, Dan Brophy, back in 2018, Nancy was sentenced to life in prison after a trial that uncovered a bizarre mix of financial schemes, suspicious purchases, and her own unbelievable writings. Who would have thought that someone who wrote a story about bumping off her husband would actually do it? Apparently, pretty much everyone. Nancy had built a modest career writing romantic suspense novels with titles such as The Wrong Husband and The Wrong Cop. Her books often explored themes of betrayal and calculated decisions, mirroring the events that prosecutors argued took place in real life. Even more shocking was her 2011 essay, How to M-Word Your Husband. YouTube won't let us say the actual M word, but it rhymes with hurdler, where she outlined potential motives and methods for pulling off such a crime. While the essay wasn't directly used as evidence in court, the fact that she actually wrote something like that was clearly on everyone's minds during the trial. Dan Brophy's body was discovered on the kitchen floor at the Oregon Culinary Institute in 2018, where he worked as an instructor. He had been fired upon at close range, getting hit once in the back and once in the chest while performing his morning tasks. Nothing appeared out of place as far as it being some sort of robbery. Dan's wallet, cash, and credit cards were untouched, which meant that whatever the motive was, it was probably personal. The ensuing investigation revealed that Dan's wife Nancy had purchased a ghost firearm kit and additional firearm parts in the months leading up to her husband's passing. Although she insisted these purchases were research for her writing, prosecutors argued that she used the extra slide and barrel to commit the crime, then swapped them out to prevent the firearm from being linked to the bullets found at the scene. The new parts were never recovered, adding to the suspicion that they had been deliberately disposed of. Financial struggles also played a significant role in the case. The couple had been under economic strain, having to withdraw from retirement accounts just to stay afloat. Yet Nancy maintained expensive life insurance policies that prosecutors said she aimed to cash in on after Dan's passing, totaling over $1.4 million. Surveillance footage also placed her van near the crime scene on the morning of the incident, despite her claim of being elsewhere. Prosecutors also pointed to eerie parallels between the crime and Nancy's 2011 essay. While it wasn't directly used as evidence, she outlined motives such as financial gain and methods such as firearms, noting that they were messy and required skill. She emphasized the need to avoid detection, echoing the prosecution's argument that she used a ghost firearm kit and purchased the additional Glock parts to obscure ballistic evidence. Her methodical planning seemed to mirror her fiction, with the real-life crime playing out in an unsettlingly similar fashion. Nancy's defense argued that all the evidence was just circumstantial. Basically, that it just happened that she wrote out her essay about taking out Dan, and that it was just coincidence that she was researching the exact method she used to execute her plan, and that she and Dan totally had a loving marriage. She testified about their bond and shared plans, insisting she had no motive to harm him. But the jury, just like pretty much everyone else who heard this story, was unconvinced, deliberating for just 8 hours before delivering a guilty verdict. As of the release of this video, Nancy is serving her sentence, leaving many to reflect on how art, life, and intent intertwined in this chilling case. It's so weird to think that a writer who explored the nuances of marital betrayal and fictional crimes ended up following a path so close to her own stories. Just writing that essay, let alone actually publishing it, almost guaranteed that if anything ever happened to her husband, she'd be the first suspect, regardless of the actual evidence. You'd expect better from a crime author. Number 6. Low Speed Getaway. Florida man Dusty Mobley was wanted for stealing a $40,000 boat and evading deputies by diving into a swamp. Months later, when law enforcement finally tracked him down, his escape plan took an unexpected turn. This time, he tried to get away on a riding lawnmower, Rex Fury style. Mobley first caught authorities' attention in early 2022 when he allegedly stole a $40,000 boat. Investigators say he used heavy machinery to break into a metal building and make off with the vessel. When deputies approached him days later, he was on the stolen boat, living his Florida man life. But instead of surrendering, Mobley dove into a nearby swamp that was likely filled with gators because, it's Florida, and there's more gators than there are people, and managed to evade arrest. Because, seriously, the cops weren't crazy enough to jump into a swamp probably filled with gators. Months later, deputies tracked him down at his property. Spotting them, Mobley hopped on a John Deere riding lawnmower and sped off. Well, we're using sped off as a relative term here. He sped off as much as someone can speed off when driving a ride on a lawnmower, which is about 7 miles an hour. The chase lasted only 17 seconds before deputies used a taser to stop him. At the time of his arrest, Mobley was found with a firearm, a handcuff key, and some substance paraphernalia. Mobley's criminal history stretches back years, including convictions for arson and fleeing police. This time, he's facing over a dozen charges with no bond set. While fleeing authorities is a stupid move, doing it on a lawnmower is extra stupid. We're not sure exactly what his plans were here. Maybe he was hoping to distract the police with a gloriously manicured lawn? We don't claim to understand the deranged mind of a Florida man. We just sit back, watch, and appreciate the spectacle. Number 5. Professorizing. Dr. Ellen Glickman, a longtime professor and former director at Kent State University, found herself in a situation she probably didn't expect when she called 911 for help getting into her office. What started as a request to access the restroom quickly spiraled into a much more complicated incident. It all began after a university commencement ceremony where Glickman had been celebrating with colleagues. She called the police, claiming she was locked out of Nixon Hall, a building on Kent State University's campus where Dr. Ellen Glickman worked, but officers arriving on the scene noted the smell of alcohol on her breath. Glickman admitted to having a drink earlier in the night, but the situation escalated when she refused multiple requests to call for a ride home. Instead, she argued that she was okay to drive, since she had a Tesla, obviously. But the cops weren't going for it. The back and forth became increasingly tense, with Glickman threatening to report the officers while refusing their suggestions to just call for a ride. Eventually, they arrested her on a charge of disorderly conduct by intoxication. Although the charge was later dropped after Glickman completed community service and paid court fees, the incident drew significant attention when body cam footage went viral. Glickman defended her actions, attributing her behavior to a medical condition and denying intoxication. Despite this, the university reassigned her from her director position to a faculty role. She's since described the experience as deeply humiliating, citing the harsh reactions from online commentators. For someone with nearly 3 decades of service in the university, it's too bad that one dumb viral moment cost her position and prestige. It's a good reminder of how quickly a single incident, especially one caught on camera, can wipe out years of dedication and hard work. Number 4. Squad car misuse. Matthew Ellery, a former officer from Middlesex, New Jersey, wound up at the center of a concerning incident that ended his career when he was found unresponsive in his patrol car during a midnight shift. And why was he unconscious? He had, let's just call it, had a bit too much illegal substance misuse in his squad car while on duty. Ellery, 29, was discovered unresponsive in his patrol vehicle after taking a ride on the Big H, if you get our drift, while on duty during the midnight shift. A fellow officer, acting quickly, administered Narcan, a medication that quickly reverses the effects of an overdose. It was later revealed that Ellery had overdosed on illegal substances, which naturally led to an investigation by the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office. As a part of a plea deal, Ellery admitted to possession of contraband and driving under the influence. His agreement included mandatory participation in a specialized court program focusing on rehabilitation, along with probation and a temporary suspension of his driver's license. The alternative? A potential 5-year prison sentence if he fails to complete the program. So it was a pretty easy choice. However, the incident exposed larger problems within the Franklin Township Police Department. Abrupt retirements of the department's chief and a captain followed soon after, probably in an effort to avoid further scrutiny, since the local prosecutor's office stepped in to conduct a thorough review. Mismanagement issues, including the misuse of paid time off, were later revealed, costing the township hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ellery's bad decision brought scrutiny not only to his personal struggles, but also to the systemic flaws in the department, which ultimately may be a good thing. While Ellery works towards recovery, Franklin Township is left to address the structural problems that contributed to a broader sense of disarray within its law enforcement. It's a pretty steep fall for someone who decided the best time to use illegal substances was while on duty in his squad car, right? Thankfully, no one was hurt, since he was too incapacitated to provide backup. He could have cost someone their life. Number 3, back to the well. Brianna Rain Cruz, a 23-year-old from Miami, got herself all wrapped up in legal trouble after being accused of orchestrating elaborate schemes to defraud Regions Bank. Authorities allege that Cruz used stolen identities and fake companies to secure tens of thousands of dollars in loans. It wasn't her first attempt either. She had already been arrested earlier in 2023 for trying a similar scam on the same bank. So, how did she think she could pull it off again? Brianna Rain Cruz's schemes first began when she successfully defrauded Regions Bank out of $75,000. Using stolen personal information, she created a fake business called Luxury Motor Club to make her application for a vehicle loan appear legitimate. The loan was approved, and she used a cashier's check to purchase a Mercedes-Benz, managing to pull off the fraud undetected at the time. Later that same year, she made another attempt, this time depositing a $100,000 check from a couple into the Luxury Motor Club. However, the check was later flagged as unpaid, and the true account holders denied any involvement. Despite this setback, Cruz continued their fraudulent activities. Her downfall came when she tried the same tactics against the Regions Bank branch. This time, she used stolen personal information to apply for a vehicle loan and reported a cashier's check made out to another fake business she had created. Bank employees immediately noticed irregularities in her documentation and flagged the transaction as suspicious. The combination of a dubious business name and stolen personal details led them to alert authorities, resulting in Cruz's arrest at the scene. Investigators pieced together her history of fraud, uncovering the early schemes involving the $75,000 loan and the failed $100,000 deposit. Cruz's apparent luxury lifestyle, including her high-end car and connections to upstate businesses, painted a picture of wealth built on lies. As of the release of this video, Cruz is facing multiple charges, including grand theft and fraudulent use of ID information, leaving her looking at probably getting a room in the big house. Honestly, running the same scam at the same bank, not once, not twice, but 3 times, wasn't just bafflingly stupid. It showed a complete lack of any sort of strategy. Even going to different banks or varying her approach might have delayed her getting caught, but sticking to the same method in the same place made getting caught almost inevitable. Number 2, police taunting. Patrice Smith, a 41-year-old woman from Spartanburg County, South Carolina, was arrested after making a bold decision to taunt law enforcement on social media. Her idiotic posts not only caught attention, but also led to a tip that revealed where she was. Smith had an active bench warrant for failing to appear in court for a driving-related offense. Instead of laying low, she took to her social media account to announce she was out and about, and to tell the police that's looking for her that she's definitely out there. Her words, and wouldn't you know it, this brazen behavior turned out to be her undoing. A Crime Stoppers tip provided crucial information, including her new address, a description of her car, and screenshots of her social media posts. Deputies found her car at the specified address and attempted to make contact. When she refused to open the door, they got a search warrant and found her inside. She was taken into custody without further incident. It was such a dumb idea to openly challenge law enforcement like that, right? Especially calling them out online where people will rat someone out just because they can. If the cops really wanted to find her, everyone knows they would have done it pretty quickly. It's not as if she were playing this wily cat and mouse game or something. There's literally no upside to calling down law enforcement on yourself. If they weren't finding her, it's probably because they weren't really looking. Number 1. Unworthy tanlines. Aline Tamara Moreira de Amorim, 37, and Beatriz Tavares de Silva Faria, 27, both influencers from Brazil, lost their lives in a tragic boating incident off the Sao Paulo coast. The two were attending a yacht party, but their return trip turned tragic when they put more importance on things such as taking selfies and getting tans above boring things such as not drowning. Amorim and Faria chose not to wear life jackets, so called because they protect your life, while on a smaller boat taking them back to shore. Witnesses, including the boat's captain, explained that they had turned down the safety gear because they were more worried about their photo ops and tans, which is as frustrating as it is sad. The overcrowded vessel, carrying 7 passengers despite its 5-person capacity, capsized after being struck by a wave in an area known as Devil's Throat. Which, as a side note, if there's a place that has the devil's anything attached to it, it's not a place we're going to ever visit. Places with devil in the name usually earn that reputation for a reason, and it's rarely because they're known for their safety or charm. If I were on a boat going through a place called the Devil's Throat, we're probably going to double up on life jackets and not turn them down. Anyway, Amorim and Faria, who didn't know each other before the party, were among those thrown into the water. The captain had tried to help everyone on board, but couldn't save the 2 women. One survivor, Vanessa Audrey da Silva, recalled clinging to a rock after putting on her life jacket, saying the chaotic waters left her fighting for survival. Authorities later recovered Faria's body at sea, while Amorim's was found days later on a nearby beach. Amorim, who had a 17-year-old son, had posted photos of her time on the luxury yacht to social media just before the incident. Investigators are looking into whether negligence or recklessness contributed to the tragedy, which it sounds like it did. Why the captain would even allow someone on his boat to not wear life jackets is beyond us, especially for the flimsy reasons the women gave. The whole situation is a reminder of how some people lose their lives in car accidents simply because they didn't wear a seatbelt for no good reason. We're not saying they deserved the outcome, but when someone rejects the simplest and most effective safety measures purely for vanity, then they're taking an unnecessary and dangerous risk for very little reward. Click to watch one of these next videos.